Well, it appears the pendulum in the ongoing WBD bidding war has swung in the opposite direction once again, this time in the favor of Paramount. So once again, here we are at Cosmic Book News. And look at David Ellison, flashing all of that cash. So the bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery, WBD, just tilted again. Multiple reports say WBD is now weighing whether to reopen talks with Paramount Skydance after Paramount sent a revised offer meant to undercut the existing Netflix deal. Look, I'm a layman and all this stuff, but the Paramount deal always sounded better, you know? And by that, I mean the bid, you know? So, what's being reported? WBD may reopen talks with Paramount. The New York Post, New York Times, Reuters, and Bloomberg report that WBD is considering reopening sale discussions with Paramount and Skydance after receiving an amended bid. WBD publicly said it will carefully review and consider the Paramount offer under the terms of its agreement with Netflix. Well, yeah. It's like, which one's better? Again, I would say the Paramount deal, but, that's the key shift. WBD is no longer acting like Paramount is just background noise. The door looks cracked open again. So here's some other people weighing in on it. You got Charles Gasparino. He's reporting on it. Paramount may soon pull ahead of Netflix in the battle of Warner Brothers Discovery. Yeah. And then here you have Lauren Hirsch. I'm not all that familiar with, but WBD's response to Paramount's sweetened bid is due February 25th. News coming out now that WBD is seriously considering re-engaging with that's Paramount, gives Netflix a bit of runway to put together a better offer. If it wants, do they try to preempt or wait and see? Yeah, what else can they do? They got to overcome, and this must mean that Paramount's plan, which was to do the hostile takeover by going directly to the shareholders. So it appears quite a few shareholders are like, hey, wait a minute. This is more money. So anyway, here's what's getting the headlines. Paramount is offering to cover the $2.8 billion breakup termination fee tied to walking away from the Netflix agreement. So there you go. You see, they don't even have that as it goes, hey, look, we've signed this deal, but if we break it now, we have to pay them for their troubles. Paramount says, don't sweat it, man. We'll cover it. So Paramount added a 25-cent per share ticking fee paid quarterly if the deal drags past December 31st, 2026, which is all in all is pretty likely. More than likely longer for Netflix, but nevertheless. Anyway, the reporting frames this extra value to WBD shareholders if regulators delay. Paramount is trying to make delay risk someone else's problem by literally paying for time. Yeah. And again, the Netflix, there's more of an antitrust case against them. They could still probably win it, but still, it would drag on. So why the momentum is shifting toward Paramount? Well, let's see. One read, including the Wall Street chatter, is that Paramount has gained ground because the Netflix structure raises more political and regulatory heat, while Paramount's revised terms are designed to look more shareholder friendly on paper. They are. It's more money. Yeah, I always thought that the board was pretty solid with Netflix up to this point. What shook them loose? It has to be the shareholders. And it's obvious to me, anyway, that the deal's sweeter for the board members than it is for the overall shareholders. And no, that's not good. Yeah, especially when there's a better offer. Even their original offer is better than the Netflix one. So, Recent coverage also points to prediction market odds tightening, with Paramount closing the gap fast. And if WBD's board is even willing to revisit talks, that alone signals Paramount's pressure campaign is working. Yeah. So, well, here's the stats and all that goody gumdrop stuff. Hey, what about Trump? Well, a new wrinkle is getting attention on X. David D. Towel or Twill posted that Trump will have the last word, exactly as Matt McClain has said, on a Warner Brothers purchase, and that the winner is likely to be Ellison. Well, yeah, it's no secret that Trump favors the Ellisons, but this has to go through the regulatory process. And if you do some shenanigans where it's obvious just his thumb, it's not an honest way of doing this. You have to actually make the case. So with Netflix being the dominant streamer, you've got a case there for antitrust concerns and that sort of stuff. All the other stuff about whining about their content, which I agree with, is a lot of disgusting content on Netflix. But yeah, it's their company. They could put on there what they want, and if people don't like it, they don't have to watch it and that sort of thing. The only concern would be, it's like, look, you're going to be the only game in town, so if they want to watch anything, they got to pay for a company that provides this kind of crap. And oh, right, that goes back to antitrust because they're essentially monopolizing the industry. And then but YouTube's it's similar, but it's a different animal, and YouTube is king when it comes to streaming. That is true, but it's a very different vehicle. When it comes to basic television and movies, that's where Netflix is king in the streaming market. And now they're, wanting to acquire the third most popular streaming service. So you see the problem there. With Paramount, it's much different. Old PP just doesn't measure up as good as HBO Max does. But if they were to acquire it, yeah. But it wouldn't result in the same weight between the two companies. So, that's the argument there for that. Political arguments and whatnot are just cultural arguments. I don't think that weighs in, other than the consumer's choices are greatly limited when there's just one dominant streaming service, and then they just start putting it on there because it's like, hey, I never watched that garbage. Okay, but you're still paying for it with your subscription, and for quite a lot of people, that's not not going to go very well. But if competition looms and there's actual competitive market, well, there's other options for you. Well, not with a big monster like Netflix. So there's a legitimate case here. But of course, it'd be cited that Trump just picked a winner, and there you go. But with what Paramount's doing here and with the amount that they're offering, I'm sorry, what's the argument? How is their offer less than Netflix? That's what you got to do. And at this point, Netflix still wins. I'm suspecting shenanigans there. Like the board, the deal's sweeter for them individually than it is for the company overall. Anyway, that's not an official indicator of anything by itself, but it matches the political reality of deals this size. Whoever wins may still need the right people in Washington to stop throwing sand in the gears, especially with Netflix being woke. Yeah, but they still got to do it within the letter of the law. That's the stumbling there. However, I think there's a strong case to do just that. So now, wait a minute. Now for the spicy part. I don't know why I said spart, like I was going to put the words together. Anyway, Status News, never heard of him, reports industry whispers that Comcast CEO Brian Roberts could make a run at Paramount, especially if the Ellison Warner dream stalls out. Right now, this is still rumor level chatter, but it's the kind of chatter that starts showing up when everyone is gaming out the what if the main deal dies scenarios. What is interesting is that Taylor Sheridan is leaving Paramount for Comcast. Yeah, that's not good for Paramount, but it's done deal at this point. Well, Sheridan wouldn't be making much of an exit if Paramount Comcast happens. Yes, that's right. This isn't the end of the mergers and all that. You understand? Plus, it's costing Paramount a lot to win, Warner Brothers. So then maybe Comcast could swoop in and then that might create some problems. That would create there'd be antitrust arguments there that Comcast would have to hurdle some way, somehow. Anyway, hey, look, it's Zack Snyder. What's this about? Well, this is where things get interesting for DC fans. McCloy's been told that for a while now that if Paramount ends up winning, the Snyderverse is back in full play. On the flip side, if Netflix wins, he's also been told Zack Snyder would end up adapting The Dark Knight Returns and wants Ben Affleck as Batman. Yeah, and I still wonder if that's not the ultimate outcome. And no matter who wins it, that could be a thing. Maybe Cavill playing the Superman in that story. I don't know. Anyway, as it stands now, it's looking like Paramount wins. If it's looking like Paramount wins, Zack Snyder will be back in full force with the DCEU. Yeah, maybe. And that'll be an interesting thing to play out. Does everybody come back for it? And some of the things people, the individual actors want is notably Cavill and Affleck. Now, Affleck, to do a Batman project with Zack Snyder, I think he would do it. Now, look, they're all getting longer in the tooth now. But then, with AI and stuff, you can kind of smooth that out, and make it happen. But for Cavill, both Cavill and Affleck got jerked around by Warner Brothers through this whole DC ordeal, not the least of which Snyder himself. To have DCEU back on the table, if it's just for Snyder to finish his Justice League films, at this point, Cavill's getting a lot of work. Affleck's still working and everything. It's like, whereas Cavill, he wants Man of Steel 2. I mean, if part of the deal is to finish off the DCEU story with Justice League, sure. Now, Affleck might be more inclined because he seems to generally have a really good friendship with Zack Snyder, has a lot of respect for him and really enjoys working with him and that sort of thing. And so whatever project, he might be more willing to participate in it, despite all the bad blood with Warner Brothers and everything like that. But it would also be nice for him to get his own Batman film, which he was working on at the time when all the troubles were happening. So could that be in the offering? The simpler thing is Zack Snyder's always wanted to do Dark Knight Returns more so than the DCEU and all that. Maybe just do that, and there you go. It still leaves the DCEU incomplete for the narrative that he had set up. And after seeing his Justice League, would really like to see the other two completed. So, and with new technologies and AIs, though, it could perhaps cut some of the costs, and they could pull this off. It's a big maybe. I still think Dark Knight Returns is the more likely outcome. And maybe even there again, do you get Henry Cavill to return as his Superman? That would be really cool. I kind of thought he should have done a Dark Knight adaptation to begin with and just fit that into a DC universe, cinematic universe thing, but whatever, they didn't do it. I don't know. I think he would still feel very bummed out that he didn't get to do his full-on Superman movie. He only got to do one. And especially since Dark Knight Returns is yet another Batman film that he would guest star in as Superman. It's very much the same thing in a lot of ways. Plus, he's a bit of the villain in the story. Misunderstandings and all that, but still. And Batman beats the crap out of him and all that. And it's something they did that lots of Dark Knight Returns was stolen for Batman versus Superman, And it's like, I don't know. So you see, there's stumbling blocks all around. But I think you got to give Affleck and Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot a third Wonder Woman, for that matter, to get those guys back in there. Yeah, as part of the overall package. So you're looking at 5 movies total. You know, so it's still a bit iffy. But rumor mill is it appears the Ellisons are more interested, or at least open to discussing this more so than Netflix. You got to keep in mind Netflix, yeah, they were on good terms with Snyder, but he hasn't really produced for them. He produced Rebel Moon and Army of the Dead. Those movies are terrible. I'm sorry, they are. I was hoping, hope that they would be really great. Twilight of the Gods he did was probably the best of those 3 projects. It's got its problems, but oh my God, Army of the Dead was awful. Rebel Moon, there's a lot of good looking effects and whatnot, but and Army of the Dead does too, but they're terrible. And I don't see any evidence that those, blew the rails off and, oh my God, because everything seems to have quieted down. There's supposed to have been some police drama he was supposed to do for Netflix. Now he's working on for some Saudi investors on that, MMA movie, The Brawler. And I don't know if that's going to be a Netflix project or not, or it just might just be a theatrical release and whatnot. But but there again, the rumors were the Saudi investment might help him. Hey, I got some sugar daddy who wants to fund DCEU. If that's the case, oh well, okay, then But either way, that's the scenario from those two of what seems likely for a Snyderverse return. It would probably be more than likely Dark Knight Returns. But, well, we'll see. Hey, which X-Men character is the best? Well, we know the most popular is Wolverine, so we'll go with that. Let's see what it says. I was right. There you go. See? You got to listen to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin. You do. And even if you disagree with that, you're wrong. You know why? Because you just did listen to me. Anyway, we'll do it again on the next one. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll talk to you again on some other Nailsin rating story. I do that from time to time. Stick around. There's more on the way.